After his bride ran away, breaking his heart, until his black maid's love healed it. Before we start today's story, comment below where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss what's next. Sterling Lockwood was a very rich man in Charleston. Everyone in town knew his name. He was tall, handsome, and the heir to the great Lockwood Industries. On his wedding day, hundreds of important people came. The governor came, 2 senators came, 300 guests filled the Grand Hotel chapel. But there was a problem. The bride, Serafina Devereaux, did not walk down the aisle. The clock ticked. 1 hour passed, then 2 hours. The seat beside Sterling was still empty. Sterling stood in a little room near the chapel, his face tight with anger and hurt. His best friend, Cormac, gave him a glass of whiskey. "She's not coming, is she?" Sterling asked with a hollow voice. Cormac looked at him with sad eyes. "Her mother just confirmed it. Serafina left a note. She ran away to Europe with that photographer from your engagement shoot." Sterling swallowed the drink in one gulp. It burned his throat, but it did not hurt as much as the shame he felt. 300 guests, all the cameras, all the whispers. Everyone had come to see the perfect wedding, and now he looked like a fool. His father stepped into the room, and his face hard but polite. "I'll make the announcement," he said. Sterling did not wait. He walked out of the hotel, past the staring eyes and clicking phones. He jumped into his silver Bentley and drove away, tires screeching against the road. 3 weeks later, the Lockwood mansion outside Charleston was quiet like a tomb. Sterling had locked himself inside after canceling the honeymoon and leaving his business. The grand Georgian mansion, with wide verandas and neat gardens, felt empty. Inside, Alara Moss pushed her cleaning cart down the long hallway. She was 27 and had worked for the Lockwoods for 5 years. Usually the house was lively, but now it felt heavy and sad. She stopped at the study door and knocked softly. "Mr. Lockwood, do you want your coffee now or later?" Silence. She was used to that. She opened the door carefully. Sterling sat at his desk, staring out at the giant oak trees. He did not look at her. "I'll just leave it here," she whispered, setting the cup on his desk. Strong coffee, a touch of cream, no sugar. She knew his favorite. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "They're all calling, you know. The board, my parents. They want me back at work." Alara paused. It was the most he had spoken in days. "Sometimes people don't know what to say when something bad happens," she said gently. "They think moving on means forgetting." Sterling finally turned to her. His once bright blue eyes looked dull and tired. "And what do you think, Alara?" She was surprised he remembered her name. Many rich families never bothered. "I think moving forward and forgetting are different things," she said. "One is needed, the other is impossible." He looked at her for a moment, then back at the window. "Thank you for the coffee." It was a dismissal, but polite. Alara nodded and left. Days passed. His parents visited sometimes. His mother scolded him to snap out of it. His father reminded him that Lockwoods don't wallow. But they never stayed long. Friends called less and less. The house staff walked carefully, afraid of disturbing him. Only Alara stayed steady. She worked quietly, humming old gospel songs her grandmother had taught her. She did not pity him, did not ask questions, did not push him. One night, a summer storm rolled across the marshland. The thunder roared, and the lights went out. Alara lit candles and planned to leave them for Sterling before going to her small apartment above the garage. But then she noticed a dim light from the drawing room. Inside, Sterling sat in an armchair, a glass of whiskey in his hand, a small lamp casting shadows across his face. "I brought candles," Alara said, placing them nearby. "Thank you," he answered. Then, after a pause, "You don't have to rush off." She hesitated, then sat across from him. Rain lashed the windows. Thunder rumbled. It was quiet, but not uncomfortable. "Do you ever feel like your life was supposed to be something else?" Sterling asked suddenly. "Like everyone had a picture of you and you tried to fit it. But then something happens, and you see it was all for show. Ilara finished softly, but then something happens that shows it was all just for show. He looked at her, surprised. I wanted to be a singer once, she confessed. My mama paid for piano lessons. People at church said I had a gift. What happened? He asked. Life, she said with a shrug. Mama got sick. Medical bills grew. I needed steady work more than dreams. Sterling studied her in the candlelight. He realized he had never really looked at her before. Her warm brown eyes, the gentle curve of her cheeks, her neat folded hands. Do you regret it? He asked. Sometimes, she admitted. But then I think about how Mama got the care she needed, how she didn't have to worry. That's worth more than a stage. They talked until the storm passed. For the first time since the wedding, Sterling felt something. Not happiness, but something real. The next morning, Ilara found a brand new record player in the kitchen with a note. For your humming. The house has been too quiet. She smiled, tucked the note into her pocket, and went back to work. Weeks passed. Little by little, Sterling changed. He came out of his study more. Sometimes he made his own coffee. Sometimes he sat on the veranda with a book. One afternoon, Ilara was dusting in the library, singing softly. She turned to find Sterling at the door. Sorry, she said quickly, embarrassed. Don't apologize, he said. You have a beautiful voice. What song was that? Just one my grandmother taught me, she said. Were you close to her? Sterling asked, stepping closer. Ilara nodded. She raised me after Mama died. She taught me everything. Cooking, singing, how to stand tall in a world that tries to make you small. She sounds wise, Sterling said. The wisest, Ilara smiled. What about you? Were you close with your grandparents? She asked. Sterling's voice softened. My grandfather, yes. He built Lockwood Industries from nothing. People saw the success, but I saw how he cared for every worker. He knew all their kids' names. He would be disappointed in me. I doubt that, Ilara said gently. Grief changes people, but it doesn't take away who they are. Their eyes met. The air shifted, like the first hint of a new season. That night, Sterling opened his leather journal for the first time in months. He wrote, She hums when she thinks no one is listening. Songs I don't know, but they make the house feel less empty. Strange that the one who sees me clearest is the one I hardly noticed before. The next day, his parents arrived without warning. His mother, Genevieve Lockwood, stormed in with her perfume cloud. Enough, Sterling, she declared. It's been 2 months. Serafina was the fool, not you. The board needs you back. I'm not ready, Sterling said calmly. Lockwoods don't live by feelings, his father snapped. We live by duty. The duty that had me engaged to a woman who didn't love me? Sterling shot back. The duty that makes me live someone else's life? You've always been too sensitive, Genevieve said sharply. Too much like your grandfather with his silly ideas. The words hurt more than he wanted to admit. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Ilara passing with towels, her shoulders tense. She had heard everything. I'll think about coming back, Sterling said finally, but on my terms. Later, he found Ilara in the garden clipping flowers. The sun lit her skin, and a curl had slipped from her ponytail. I'm sorry you heard that, he said. They're just worried about you, she said carefully. No, Sterling shook his head. They're worried about the company, not me. What would you do, Ilara, if you could be anything? He asked suddenly. She blinked. I'd sing again. Maybe open a music school for kids who can't pay for lessons. She blushed. Silly dream. Not silly, Sterling said firmly. It's real. Honest. Then he added softly, Would you sing for me someday? A whole song? Ilara smiled shyly. I'd like that. That evening, Sterling wrote in his journal again, his hand racing across the pages. He wrote about sunlight in her hair, about her voice, about how he waited to hear her footsteps each morning. For the first time, his dreams were not haunted by Serafina. Instead, he dreamed of Ilara's humming. The next day, Sterling made a choice. He called his assistant. Send me some files. I'll work from home. When Alara brought his coffee to the veranda, she saw him with his laptop open, looking strong again. "You're working," she said with a smile. "Trying to," he nodded. "I realized hiding isn't honoring my grandfather's legacy, it's betraying it." "That sounds like progress," she said warmly. "It's a beginning," he agreed. That evening, Sterling wrote a note and hid it inside the clean laundry that Alara had folded and left in his room. He looked at the words for a long time before putting it there. His heart beat faster than it had in many months. The note only said, "You are the only part of this house that makes it feel like home." The next morning, Alara found the note while she was putting away Sterling's clothes. Her hands shook a little as she read the words. She quickly put the note into her pocket when she heard someone walking toward her. It was Mrs. Agatha, the cook, standing in the doorway. "There you are, Alara. Mr. Lockwood wants breakfast on the veranda this morning. He says he'll be working from home today." Alara nodded, trying to keep her face calm even though her heart was fluttering. "I'll make sure everything is ready for him," she said. Later that morning, Alara carried fresh towels to the guest bathroom. In the hallway, she almost bumped into Sterling. They both froze. They were standing very close, closer than ever before. Alara could smell his cologne, soft and expensive. "Good morning," Sterling said in a gentle voice. "Morning, Mr. Lockwood," Alara answered, looking down. "Sterling," he corrected kindly. "I think we've known each other long enough for that." Before Alara could reply, Sterling's phone rang. He sighed, looked at the screen, and said, "The office. I should take this." Then he walked away. Alara let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. The note in her pocket felt hot against her skin. She didn't know what to do about the warm, happy feeling that grew inside her whenever he was near. That afternoon, Sterling's sister Juliet arrived. She entered the house like a whirlwind, wearing fancy designer clothes. She found Sterling in his study. "Well, well," she said. "The prodigal brother finally comes out of his cave of self-pity." Sterling rolled his eyes but smiled. Juliet had always supported him, unlike their parents. "I wouldn't call it emerging," he said, "just dipping my toes back into reality." Juliet sat on the leather sofa. "Mom says you're being stubborn about returning to work." "Mom thinks anything less than total obedience is stubborn," Sterling replied. "True," Juliet laughed. Then her smile softened. "How are you really?" Sterling thought carefully. A month ago, he would have said one word, surviving. But now he said, "I'm finding my way. Things are starting to feel possible again." Juliet looked at him closely. "Something's different about you. There's a light back in your eyes." Before Sterling could answer, Alara knocked on the open door. She carried a tray of iced tea. "Mrs. Agatha thought you might like refreshments," Alara said politely. "Perfect timing. Thank you," Sterling said, smiling warmly at her. Juliet noticed the way Sterling's eyes followed Alara as she set down the tray and left quietly. "Well, well," Juliet whispered with a teasing grin. "I think I've found the reason for that light." "Don't start," Sterling warned. "She's pretty," Juliet said, "and not like those social climbers you used to date." "She's an employee, Juliet. An employee you call by her first name," Juliet pointed out. "The Sterling I knew 3 months ago barely noticed the staff at all." Sterling poured the tea, trying to look busy. "She's been kind during a difficult time, that's all." Juliet hummed. "Whatever you say, brother dear." After Juliet left, Sterling felt restless. Her words bothered him because they were true. Was he showing his feelings for Alara too clearly? If he was, what did it mean? The line between them wasn't just employer and worker. It was wealth, class, and family expectations. His parents would never approve. The newspapers would gossip again, like when his wedding failed. But what would Alara think? He didn't want her to feel uncomfortable in her job. That evening, as the sun turned the sky pink and gold, Sterling walked into the garden. Alara was there, cutting herbs for dinner. She had changed into a simple sundress, her hair down around her shoulders. "You're still here," Sterling said in surprise. I thought your shift ended at 5. Mrs. Agatha asked me to help with dinner. She's making your favorite shrimp and grits. You know my favorite foods? Sterling asked. Alara blushed a little. It's my job to notice things. Sterling stepped closer. And what else have you noticed, Alara? She looked into his eyes and said softly, that you're starting to live again, not just exist. It suits you. The words stayed between them like something fragile and true. No games, no hidden plans, just honesty. My sister thinks, Sterling began, then stopped. She thinks I'm finally moving on from Serafina. Oh, Alara said in a careful voice. Sterling added quickly, it's not exactly a lie. That's good, Alara said. You deserve happiness. As she turned to go back inside, Sterling called out, Would you like to stay for dinner? Not as staff, but as my guest? The question surprised them both. Alara looked unsure. I don't think that would be right, Mr. Lockwood. Sterling, he corrected again. Sterling, she repeated softly. But my answer is the same. Good night. She walked away, leaving him in the garden alone. The jasmine smelled sweet in the air. That night, Sterling wrote in his journal, she turned down dinner. She was right. There are lines between people like me and people like her. But when I'm with her, those lines feel meaningless. She sees me, not the name, not the money, just me. That is rare. That is precious. The next morning, Sterling went to meetings in Charleston. For the first time in months, he wore a suit and tie. Everyone seemed glad to see him, but no one mentioned Serafina or the broken wedding. They just talked about numbers and business. By afternoon, he felt trapped and left early. Instead of going home, he drove to a little music shop. The old owner was surprised to see a businessman in a suit looking at records. Can I help you find something? He asked. Yes, Sterling said. Old gospel records from 30 or 40 years ago. An hour later, Sterling left with a stack of albums. He felt a purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. When he returned home, Mrs. Agatha told him Alara had called in sick. Disappointment hit him hard. Did she say what was wrong? He asked. Just a migraine. She should be back tomorrow. Send her some soup, Sterling said quickly. Make sure she has everything she needs. Mrs. Agatha raised her eyebrow but agreed. That evening, the house felt empty without Alara. He missed her quiet humming and gentle way of making the rooms feel warm. He wrote in his journal again, the house feels hollow without her. She fills it with life. Is it wrong to want more? My parents and society would say yes, but my grandfather always said true happiness comes from following your heart. The next morning, Sterling woke early. Before the staff arrived, he prepared a tray with coffee, toast, and a flower in a vase. Mrs. Agatha found him in the kitchen and looked surprised. Everything all right, Mr. Lockwood? Fine, he said quickly. Is Alara coming in today? She called. She's feeling better. She'll be here by 9. Sterling nodded, hiding his relief. When Alara arrived, she was surprised to see Sterling waiting for her. Mr. Lockwood, Sterling, you're up early. I wanted to show you something, he said. If you have a moment. Curious, she followed him to the sunroom. There was a record player and the albums he had bought. You told me your grandmother taught you gospel songs, he explained. I found these yesterday. Maybe some will be familiar. Alara's eyes lit up as she touched the covers. My grandmother had this one, she said, picking up a record. She played it every Sunday morning while cooking. Sterling watched her smile, his heart full. Would you play it? Maybe sing along if you'd like. I haven't sung in a long time, Alara said shyly. I'd still love to hear it, Sterling replied. She looked at him, then nodded. All right, but don't expect anything fancy. She placed the record on the player. Music filled the room. Alara closed her eyes and began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, then grew stronger, deep, soulful, and full of feeling. Sterling couldn't look away. She wasn't just the quiet housemaid now. She was a woman with passion and a gift she had hidden away. When the song ended, Alara opened her eyes and found Sterling staring at her with open admiration. That was beautiful, he said. Thank you, she replied softly. Why did you stop singing? He asked. Your voice is incredible. Life doesn't always go the way we plan, she said sadly. After Mama died, there were bills to pay. Singing doesn't keep the lights on. But it lights something inside you, Sterling said gently. I could see it. Alara let him see the dreams she usually hid. Maybe someday, she whispered, when the time is right. Just then, Sterling's phone rang. It was his father. Alara quickly stood up. I should get back to work. Thank you for the records. As she turned to leave, Sterling suddenly said, Alara, wait, there's a charity gala this weekend for the Children's Hospital. My family hosts it every year. Would you like to come with me? Alara's eyes widened. As your date? She asked carefully. As my guest, Sterling said, though in his heart he wanted more. I'd understand if you'd rather not. Alara twisted her hands nervously. People would talk. Your family. Let them talk, Sterling said with sudden strength. I've spent too long worrying about what others think. Alara stayed quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she gave a small smile that made Sterling's heart skip. Yes, she said softly. I'd like that. The phone kept ringing, but Sterling didn't care. All he could see was Alara's smile. All he could hear was her yes. For the first time in months, he was excited about tomorrow. That night, he wrote in his journal again. She said yes. She'll come to the gala. I'll need to face my parents and their disapproval and the gossip too. But none of that matters. What matters is Alara. She means more to me than I've admitted, even to myself. I thought my life ended when Serafina left me, but maybe that wasn't the end. Maybe it was just making space for a new beginning. That night, Alara walked back to her little apartment above the garage. As she passed the big house, she saw a light on in the grand study. She stopped and looked up at the glowing window. For a short moment, she wondered if the small, surprising feeling growing between her and Sterling could really have a chance. She touched the pocket of her dress where she kept his note. She remembered every word. You are the only part of this house that makes it feel like home. Alara's heart beat faster with both hope and fear. She whispered into the night air, What are we doing, Sterling Lockwood? Only the sound of crickets answered her. She climbed the stairs to her small apartment, where she would spend the night thinking, feeling both happy and scared, about the big gala that was coming. The Lockwood Children's Hospital Gala was the most important party in Charleston. Every year, rich and important people wore fancy clothes, gave money to help sick children, and showed off to each other. In her tiny apartment, Alara opened her closet. Panic filled her stomach. She had only one dress that might be okay for the event. It was a simple navy blue dress she wore to her cousin's wedding last year. It was nice, but nothing like the expensive gowns other women would wear to the country club ballroom. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Sterling. Car will pick you up at 7. Looking forward to tonight. Alara's stomach fluttered. She felt both excited and worried. What was she thinking? She didn't belong in Sterling's world of chandeliers and champagne. She belonged behind the scenes, where no one noticed her. Suddenly, someone knocked on her door. Alara opened it and saw Juliet Lockwood, Sterling's sister, holding several large garment bags. Oh, good, you're home, Juliet said, walking inside like she owned the place. We don't have much time. Miss Lockwood, what are you? Alara began. Juliet, please, she corrected. She laid the bags on Alara's bed. I'm here because my brother is smart in business but clueless about what he's bringing you into tonight. Juliet unzipped one bag. Inside was a shining emerald green gown. You'll need armor, Juliet said. Alara touched the silky fabric carefully. I can't accept this. You can and you will, Juliet said firmly. Sterling told me he invited you. Do you even know what you're walking into? Alara sat on the bed with a sigh. A mistake, probably. Juliet's face softened. No, not a mistake, but definitely a statement. She sat next to Alara. Look, The Charleston elite are like sharks. Since Serafina left Sterling at the altar, they've been waiting to see his next move. And tonight, all eyes will be on you. Why are you helping me? Alara asked. You barely know me. Wait a second. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe and share your favorite part in the comments below. And don't forget to drop a heart to show your support. Juliet smiled gently. Because my brother looks at you the way our grandfather looked at our grandmother, like you hang the moon and stars. I haven't seen him this alive in months, maybe years. Alara's cheeks turned red. It's not like that between us. Maybe, not yet. Juliet winked. Now, try on this dress. 2 hours later, Alara looked into the mirror and hardly recognized herself. The emerald dress fit her perfectly, making her skin glow. Juliet had curled her hair into soft waves and helped with makeup. There, Juliet said proudly. Now you look the part. Thank you, Alara whispered. But I'm still scared. Juliet squeezed her hand. Remember, you have as much right to be there as anyone. More, actually, since most of them are just rich and rude. When the car arrived, Alara walked down the stairs with her heart pounding. Sterling stood waiting in a tuxedo. When he saw her, his eyes widened. You look absolutely beautiful, he said softly. Your sister helped, Alara admitted. She thought I needed armor. Sterling chuckled. That sounds like Juliet. Shall we? He held out his arm. The ride to the country club was quiet. Both of them were nervous in their own ways. As they got close, Alara saw bright camera flashes. Reporters were taking pictures of Charleston's richest families. We don't have to do this, Sterling said suddenly. We could just leave. Alara looked at him and saw the fear in his eyes. He was just as nervous as she was. No, she said with courage. Your family hosts this event. It's important. We're going. Sterling smiled, relief in his face. Then we're going together. When they stepped out of the car, whispers started immediately. Alara felt the weight of everyone's eyes. Sterling walked beside her with his hand at the small of her back. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, flowers, and soft music from a string quartet. At the far end, Sterling's parents, Genevieve and Alastair Lockwood, stood greeting guests. When Genevieve saw her son with Alara, her polite smile faded for just a second. Breathe, Sterling whispered. You belong here. When they reached his parents, Genevieve spoke sharply. Sterling, darling, you're late. She glanced at Alara. And you've brought a guest. Mother, father, this is Alara Moss, Sterling said strongly. Alastair's eyebrows rose. The housekeeper? Alara's face turned hot, but Sterling didn't let go of her hand. Actually, he said firmly, Alara is my date this evening. Genevieve's smile grew tighter. How unexpected. Excuse me, I must check the auction items. Later, during dinner at the main table, Genevieve leaned close and spoke loudly enough for others to hear. So, Alara, how long have you been cleaning houses? The table went quiet. Sterling tensed, but Alara calmly answered, I've been with your family for 5 years. Before that, I studied community college while caring for my grandmother. How admirable, Genevieve said with a fake smile. And what did you study? Music education. I wanted to teach children someday, Alara said. Alara has a beautiful voice, Sterling added proudly. She could have been a professional singer. How fascinating, Genevieve replied coldly. And yet, here you are folding laundry. Before Alara could answer, the hospital director tapped his glass. It was time for speeches and the auction. As Alara and Sterling listened, Serafina Devereaux, the woman who had left Sterling at the altar, walked into the room in a red gown. She looked like she wanted everyone to notice her. Sterling stiffened. I didn't know she'd be here. Are you okay? Alara whispered. Sterling looked at Alara, his expression softening. You know what? Yes, I'm okay. When Serafina reached them, she smiled sweetly. Sterling, you're looking well. Sterling's voice was cool. Serafina. And who is this? Serafina asked, looking at Alara. This is Alara Moss, Sterling said with warmth. Alara, this is Serafina. Moss, Serafina repeated. Not a Charleston name, new to society? Sterling answered before Alara could. Alara works at my estate. She's also the most genuine person in this room. Serafina blinked, then forced a smile. How progressive of you, Sterling. We should catch up sometime. I don't think so, Sterling said firmly. Those times are in the past. As Serafina walked away, Alara let out a breath. That was awkward. Sterling chuckled. Not for me. 3 months ago, seeing her would have crushed me. Tonight, I feel nothing. The band began to play a waltz. Sterling stood and offered his hand. Dance with me? I don't know how, Alara admitted. I'll teach you. It's just swaying with rules, he said with a smile. On the dance floor, he guided her gently. After a few steps, Alara relaxed. You're a natural, he whispered. I have a good teacher, she smiled back. People stared, Genevieve frowned, Serafina watched, but Sterling only held Alara closer. Let them watch. I don't care, he said. When the song ended, he took her hand. Would you like to get some air? They stepped onto the moonlit terrace. The garden was quiet, filled with the scent of jasmine. I'm sorry about tonight, Sterling said softly. The way my mother spoke to you, Serafina showing up. Don't apologize, Alara said. I knew what I was walking into. Sterling took her hands. Did you? Because sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm breaking all the rules I was raised with. Crossing lines I never thought I would, and I don't regret it, not for a second. He touched her cheek gently. You saved me, Alara, not because of my name or my money. You just saved me. Alara's heart pounded. Sterling leaned closer, about to kiss her. But the terrace doors opened. Genevieve Lockwood stood there, cold as stone. Sterling, the hospital director needs you. It's time for the family photo. Sterling straightened but kept hold of Alara's hand. We'll be right in, he said. Just family, Genevieve repeated firmly. The meaning was clear. Alara slowly pulled her hand away from Sterling's. Go, she said softly. It's important. Sterling looked at her for a moment, then nodded. Wait for me. We'll leave right after. Sterling followed his mother inside the ballroom. Alara stood on the terrace when Mrs. Genevieve Lockwood, his mother, turned to her. This little game has gone on long enough, don't you think? Genevieve said. Alara stood straighter. It's not a game, Mrs. Lockwood. Whatever it is, it ends tonight, Genevieve said in a cold voice. The Lockwood family has rules. We have a name, traditions. Sterling may be acting out after the Serafina mess, but he will wake up and remember who he is. That should be his choice, don't you think? Alara asked gently. Genevieve laughed, but the laugh had no joy. My dear, do you really think you can fit into his world? The board meetings, the charity parties, the society expectations? You don't belong here. The words hurt Alara. They were the same fears she had in her own heart. Maybe not, she said quietly, but I care about your son. I care about the person, not the position. How touching, Genevieve said with a wave of her hand. Let me make this simple. If you truly care for Sterling, you will end this. His job at Lockwood Industries, his place in this community, all of it depends on making the right choices. Choices that don't include you. You're asking me to break his heart to save his name? Alara asked quietly. I'm telling you to know your place, Genevieve said firmly. Go back to being the maid or find another job elsewhere. Those are your choices if you don't want to destroy everything Sterling has worked for. With that, she walked back inside, leaving Alara standing alone with a choice that felt impossible. Inside the ballroom, Sterling stood stiffly with his family for photographs. His mind was still outside with Alara. As soon as the photos ended, he looked around the room for her, but she was gone. Juliet, his sister, came to him with worry in her eyes. If you're looking for Alara, I saw her leave a few minutes ago. Leave? Sterling said, shocked, but I told her to wait for me. Mother found her a ride home, Juliet said grimly. Sterling, what did our dear mother say to her? A cold feeling filled Sterling's stomach. He didn't answer. He rushed out toward the exit, pulling out his phone to call Alara. But the call went straight to voicemail. Back at the Lockwood estate, Alara changed out of the fancy gown she had borrowed. She hung it carefully back up. Tears filled her eyes, but she held them back. What had she been thinking? That a fairy tale could come true? That the heir of the Lockwood family could really fall for the maid? She took out the little note Sterling had once given her. You are the only part of this house that makes it feel like home. She traced the words with her finger. Then she put the note away in a drawer, out of sight. Genevieve Lockwood was right about one thing. Alara didn't belong in Sterling's world. Tonight had shown that clearly, and if staying close to him would only hurt him, then the kindest thing she could do was walk away. With a heavy heart, she sat down at her small desk and began writing a letter of resignation. When Sterling finally arrived home later that night, the big house was dark and quiet. He went straight to the garage apartments, running up the stairs to Alara's door. He knocked. Alara, please, I know you're in there. We need to talk. After a long pause, the door opened. Alara stood there in her pajamas, her face clean of makeup, her eyes red from crying. It's late, Sterling, she said softly. We should both get some rest. What did my mother say to you? He demanded. Whatever she said, it wasn't anything I hadn't already thought myself, Alara interrupted. Tonight was nice, but it wasn't real. We're from different worlds. That's not true, Sterling said, stepping closer. What's happening between us is the most real thing I've felt in years. And what exactly is happening? Alara asked gently. What's the future here, Sterling? Your family will never accept me. Your business partners won't respect you. The newspapers will laugh about the billionaire and the maid. I don't care about any of that, Sterling insisted. But you should, Alara said sadly. It's your life, your name, your legacy. She handed him an envelope. This is my 2 weeks' notice. I think it's best if I find another job. Sterling stared at the envelope, shocked. You're quitting? Just like that? It's for the best, she whispered, but her eyes showed she was breaking inside. I don't accept this, he said, pushing the envelope back. We'll talk tomorrow when we've both rested. As he turned to go, Alara called after him. The mountain cabin you won at the auction, take Juliet. Go for the weekend. Get some perspective. Sterling looked back, his heart heavy. Is that what you want? Perspective? I think we both need it, Alara said softly. That night, neither of them slept. Sterling sat in his study until morning, staring at blank pages in his journal. Alara lay in her small bed, hearing Genevieve Lockwood's words again. If you truly care for Sterling, you'll end this. She did care for him. Too much. Too much to be the reason his family turned against him. Too much to let him lose respect. Too much to see his eyes lose their light. As the sun rose, both Alara and Sterling wondered the same question from different sides of the estate. How do you choose between your heart and what seems right? The next morning, Sterling sat in his office at Lockwood Industries. He stared at his computer screen, but he wasn't reading the reports. His eyes kept going to the envelope on his desk. Alara's resignation letter. His assistant's voice came over the speaker. Your mother is here to see you, Mr. Lockwood. Sterling sighed. Send her in. Genevieve entered, perfect as always. You left the gala rather quickly last night. I wonder why, Sterling said coolly. What did you say to Alara after I left? I simply reminded her of reality, Genevieve replied calmly. The reality of who we are, of your position, of her situation. You had no right, Sterling said. I had every right, Genevieve replied. I'm your mother. Everything this family has built depends on keeping standards. Standards or appearances? Sterling asked. In our world, they're the same thing, Genevieve said, her eyes on the envelope. I see she made the sensible choice. This isn't over, Sterling said. I haven't accepted her resignation. Darling, this is an infatuation. It's not an infatuation, Sterling said sharply. I care about her deeply. You're still weak after Serafina, Genevieve said. This has nothing to do with Serafina, Sterling said firmly. For the first time in my life, I found someone who sees me, not the name, not the fortune, just me. Genevieve's face softened slightly. Then she said, "And you don't think that's exactly why she's close to you? She's a single mother with no future, suddenly near one of Charleston's richest men." Sterling froze. "What did you just say? Single mother?" "Yes," Genevieve said, pulling out a folder. "She hasn't told you? Alara Moss has a 6-year-old daughter named Lyra. The father is unknown. Alara had her at 19 and dropped out of school. She sends most of her money to Atlanta every month." Sterling sat heavily in his chair, his mind spun. A daughter? Alara had never said a word. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. "Because you need the full truth," Genevieve said. "She's not being honest. Whatever you think is between you is built on secrets." After his mother left, Sterling sat alone, staring at the folder. Part of him wanted to throw it away and trust Alara, but another part, the part hurt before, needed answers. He opened the folder. His mother was telling the truth. Alara had a daughter. There were school records, doctor forms, even a photo of a little girl with Alara's smile. The pain wasn't that Alara was a mother. It was that she hadn't trusted him enough to tell him. Meanwhile, at the estate, Alara worked quietly. She kept her tears hidden. She expected Sterling to confront her, but he stayed away all day. That evening, she found a package at her door. Inside was the emerald gown from the gala, cleaned. A note from Juliet read, "Keep it. It was always meant for you." Alara hung the dress in her closet. It was a beautiful memory of a night that would never return. Then she made her nightly call. "Hi, Auntie May. Can I talk to Lyra?" "Mommy, guess what?" Lyra's happy voice came through. "I got an A on my spelling test." Alara smiled through her tears. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." "When are you coming to visit, Mommy? It's been forever." "Soon, baby, I promise. Maybe sooner than we planned." After the call, Alara dialed another number. It was her old boss in Atlanta. He had once told her there would always be a job for her if she returned. She thought maybe it was time. The next morning, Sterling still hadn't come back to the estate. Mrs. Agatha said he was going to the mountain cabin for the weekend. "Alone?" Alara asked before she could stop herself. Mrs. Agatha shrugged. "Didn't say. Just asked me to pack for him." Alara nodded, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. Maybe it was best. She spent the day cleaning, walking through Sterling's study slowly, remembering their talks. On the desk, his journal was open. She shouldn't read it, but her eyes caught a line. "How do I tell her that I think I'm falling in love with her?" The entry was dated the day of the gala. Alara covered her mouth with her hand. Her phone rang. It was Juliet. "Have you seen Sterling today?" she asked, sounding worried. "No," Alara said. "He went to the mountain cabin," Juliet sighed. "But he hasn't called. The storm is bad up there. Heavy snow, and Sterling, he isn't the outdoors type. And after everything with you and the gala and with our mother—" "What did your mother do?" Alara asked quickly. Juliet paused, then said quietly, "She showed him something. Something about you, about your daughter." Alara felt her face turn pale. How did she know about Lyra?" she whispered. "Background check," Juliet said softly. "Sterling found out. He's not upset that you have a child. He's upset because you didn't tell him." Alara's legs felt weak. She sat in Sterling's big chair. "I was going to tell him. I was just afraid." "I know," Juliet said gently. "I think my brother would understand if you explained. But right now he's hurt. And when he's hurt, he does silly things, like driving to a cabin in the mountains during a snowstorm." After the call, Alara made a decision. She phoned Mrs. Agatha and got the address of the cabin. Then she grabbed her coat and car keys. It would take over 3 hours to drive there, and the weather was already getting bad. But Alara couldn't shake the feeling Sterling needed her. Snow started falling as Alara drove higher into the mountains. At first, it was just light flakes, but soon the snow came down heavier and heavier. The road turned slippery. She had to slow down to almost a crawl. By the time night came, she reached the small dirt road that led to the cabin. But now it was covered in deep snow. Alara's old car struggled, the wheels spinning again and again. At last, just as she saw the cabin with lights glowing in the windows, the car slid sideways and stopped. She couldn't go further. Shivering, she left the car and walked the rest of the way through the storm. The snow soaked through her shoes. The wind cut through her coat. Her teeth chattered as she finally reached the wooden cabin and knocked on the door. At first, nothing happened. Then the door opened. Sterling stood there, surprised, then worried. "Alara, what are you doing here? You're freezing." He pulled her inside quickly and closed the door against the howling wind. The cabin was warm, a fire crackling in the fireplace. "My car got stuck," Alara said with chattering teeth. I was worried about you." Sterling wrapped a blanket around her and sat her by the fire. "You drove all the way here in this storm because you were worried about me?" Alara nodded, unable to speak. Sterling went to the kitchen and brought her hot coffee. As she held the warm cup, she felt safer. But she also knew they had to talk about everything. Sterling sat across from her. His face looked serious. "Why didn't you tell me about your daughter?" he asked. Alara stared into her cup. "At first, because it wasn't important. You were my boss. Then, when we grew closer, I got scared. Afraid you'd see me differently. Afraid you'd think I only wanted your money. Afraid you wouldn't want someone who already had such a big responsibility." "You thought I was that shallow?" Sterling asked. "No," Alara said quickly. "But your world, it's full of people who judge. I wanted to protect Lyra. She's already had too many disappointments. I couldn't let her get attached to someone who might leave." Sterling was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell me about her." Alara smiled for the first time. "She's wonderful. Smart, kind, musical like me. She's in first grade. She lives with my aunt in Atlanta right now, while I try to save money for a home for us." "That's why you send most of your salary to Atlanta," Sterling said softly. Alara sighed. "I just got caught up in what we had together. It felt like a dream. I didn't want to wake up." The storm outside grew louder, the wind shaking the windows. Sterling put another log on the fire and asked, "What are we doing, Alara? What is this between us?" Alara took a deep breath. "I think I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me." Sterling's eyes widened. "You saw my journal." "Yes, it was open on your desk. I didn't mean to." He came to her, knelt beside her, and took her hands. "Those words were true. I am falling in love with you, but I need to know you trust me, with all of your truth, not just the parts you think I want to hear." Tears filled Alara's eyes. "I want to trust you, but your mother told me I don't belong in your world, that I'd ruin everything." Sterling shook his head. "My mother doesn't decide who I love, neither does Charleston Society or the board of Lockwood Industries. The only person who decides is me." "But she was right about one thing," Alara whispered. "I don't belong in your world." "Then maybe," Sterling said softly, "it's time I build a new world, one where we both belong." Sterling pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I wrote this last night. Read it." Alara opened it. At the top were the words, "Lockwood Music Foundation, bringing music to children who need it most." "I don't understand," Alara said. "My grandfather believed business should help the community," Sterling explained. "I have a trust fund separate from the family business. I want to use it for this foundation, and I want you to run it." "Me?" Alara gasped. "Who better? You have the music. You understand the kids. You have the heart." "And us?" she whispered. "The foundation is yours no matter what happens between us. No strings. But I hope," he looked at her with hope in his eyes, "I hope you'll give us a real chance, as equals, not boss and worker." Alara felt her heart swell. This wasn't charity. This was opportunity. This was respect. Sterling squeezed her hand. "I want to meet Lyra. If she's part of your life, she should be part of mine too." Tears rolled down Alara's cheeks. "You really mean that?" He kissed her gently. "I've never meant anything more." 2 weeks later, Alara and Sterling stood nervously at the Atlanta airport. When Lyra came running through the crowd, Alara dropped to her knees. "Mommy," Lyra cried, hugging her tightly. I missed you so much, baby, Alara whispered. Then Alara turned to Sterling. Lyra, this is my friend Sterling, the one I told you about. Sterling knelt to her eye level. Hello, Lyra. Your mom says you're amazing. Lyra tilted her head. Do you really have a big house with a garden? Like Mommy said? Sterling smiled. I do. And I thought maybe you and your mom could come live there. The garden needs someone to enjoy it. Her eyes grew wide. For how long? Sterling looked at Alara lovingly. For as long as you want. Alara knelt beside her daughter, holding both of their hands. Remember how I told you things might change? That we might have a new home? Yes, Lyra said carefully. Is he part of the change, too? Only if you're okay with it, Sterling said gently. Lyra thought for a moment. Then she asked, Do you make my mommy happy? Sterling looked at Alara with love. I try to. He does, Alara said softly. Very happy. Lyra smiled. Then it's okay with me. Months later, the grand opening of the Lockwood Music Foundation was in the newspapers. The picture showed Sterling, Alara, and Lyra cutting the ribbon together. Sterling's mother stood off to the side. Her face looked mixed, half upset, half respectful. But Alara didn't care anymore. That night, after Lyra went to bed in her new room, Alara and Sterling sat on the porch, watching fireflies. Happy? Sterling asked, holding her hand. More than I ever dreamed, Alara smiled. Though your mother still looks at me like I'll steal the silver. Sterling laughed. She's trying. She even told me yesterday that Lyra has excellent posture. For her, that's big praise. She'll come around, Alara said. And if she doesn't, Sterling shrugged, it changes nothing between us. Inside, an old gospel record played softly. Alara laid her head on his shoulder. You know, she whispered, when Serafina left you at the altar, people thought it was the worst thing ever. It was, Sterling agreed, until it led me to the best thing. He turned to her. You stayed when no one else did. You saw me at my worst and didn't walk away. How could I not love you? Alara touched his cheek. I stayed because even at your worst, you were worth staying for. And as the music played and the fireflies danced, they kissed. A promise made not in front of crowds or storms, but in the quiet, certain love of two people who finally found home. Because sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most ordinary ways, with someone who simply stays. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, you'll love the next one. It's even more exciting and full of surprises. Share your story in the comments below. Maybe your story will be the next one I share.